The warning. Senior observer Krulax stood motionless before the quantum display, their crystalline sensory appendages rigid with disbelief. The radiation signature pulsing across their screens couldn't be real. It had to be an equipment malfunction. That was the only logical explanation. Humans weren't supposed to achieve quantum tunneling for at least another 3 centuries. Run the analysis again, they commanded, their voice crackling with electromagnetic distortion, a sign of severe stress in their species. The ship's AI complied silently, its algorithms sifting through the data for the 4th time. Confirmation. Quantum tunneling signature detected. Origin. Sol system. 3rd planet. Confidence level. 99.97%. Krulax's outer membrane flickered between shades of deep purple and ash gray, the equivalent of a human breaking into a cold sweat. They had been tasked with monitoring this backwater sector precisely because nothing of significance was supposed to happen here. The humans were classified as a Category 3 developing species, showing promise but centuries away from any meaningful technological breakthroughs. Yet here they were, somehow achieving what had taken the Galactic Council's finest minds millennia to perfect. And if the readings were correct, they had done it by accident. Display historical data. Last solar rotation, Krulax commanded. The AI compiled a timeline that only deepened their concern. The humans hadn't just achieved quantum tunneling. They had failed at it spectacularly at least 15 times in the past local month alone. Each failure should have resulted in catastrophic destruction. Instead, they had somehow turned each disaster into a stepping stone. The door to the observation deck whispered open, admitting junior analyst Vextra. The younger alien's bioluminescent spots pulsed with excitement, never a good sign in their line of work. Senior observer, you need to see this. Vextra practically buzzed. We've intercepted communications from their quantum research facility. The audio crackled through the ship's speakers. Holy shit, did you see that? The containment field didn't just fail, it inverted. Quick, someone write down what we did before the safety protocols kick in. More human voices joined the first, their tones carrying what the ship's emotional analyzer identified as enthusiasm and excitement, reactions that should have been impossible in the face of near-death experiences. Dr. Chen, the quantum matrix is destabilizing. Perfect. Hook up the high-speed cameras. This is exactly what we needed. Should we evacuate? Are you kidding? This is the closest we've gotten to cracking it. Jenkins, grab the emergency sensors. Martinez, start the backup recorders. If this kills us, the next team needs to know exactly how we failed. Krulax's sensory crystals vibrated with horror. They're deliberately pursuing failure paths. It gets worse, Vextra added, their spots now pulsing in patterns of scientific fascination. Look at their research methodology. A series of human documents appeared on the quantum display. They're not just accepting failure. They're systematically cataloging and building upon it. They call it failing forward. The senior observer studied the human research patterns with mounting alarm. Where council species spent decades in careful simulation before attempting any quantum experiments, humans seem to operate on a principle of try it and see what happens. Their failures didn't discourage them. They celebrated them, learned from them, and somehow emerged stronger. This defies all established scientific protocols, Krulax muttered, their crystalline form resonating with concern. The council must be informed immediately. There's more, Vextra added hesitantly. We've detected similar patterns across multiple human research facilities. They're not just experimenting with quantum physics. They're applying this same methodology to artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, and spatial folding. New data streams filled the display, humans celebrating revolutionary discoveries made through what they cheerfully termed catastrophic failures, research teams treating near-death experiences as learning opportunities, and perhaps most terrifyingly, young humans being taught that failure was not just acceptable but valuable. They're industrializing chaos, Krulax realized, their voice barely a whisper. and they're teaching their offspring to do the same. The implications were staggering. The Council's entire system of technological advancement was built on careful, methodical progress. Species were supposed to advance in predictable, manageable stages. But humans were treating the laws of physics like suggestions and the impossible like a challenge. Prepare a priority transmission to the Council, Krelax ordered, their crystals now vibrating at frequencies that indicated deep concern. Classification: Omega level warning. Subject: humanity's imminent breach of developmental protocols. As they began composing their report, another human transmission filtered through. Hey, remember how that quantum containment failure last week nearly created a microscopic black hole? Well, I've been thinking, what if we did that on purpose, but bigger? Krelax's crystals nearly shattered from resonating at anxiety frequencies. The galaxy wasn't ready for humanity's brand of progress. The only question was, could anything be done to stop it? The answer came in the form of yet another human transmission, this one from a different facility altogether. Breaking news: quantum tunneling breakthrough achieved. Scientists cite spectacular failure as key to success. Global celebration as humanity prepares for the stars. It was too late. Humanity wasn't approaching the galactic stage according to schedule. They were charging towards it, powered by the very failures that should have destroyed them. And they were laughing all the way. Krelax had one final thought as they transmitted their warning to the Council. The galaxy would never be the same after humanity's arrival. Whether that was a good thing or a catastrophe remained to be seen. But one thing was certain: it was going to be interesting. The Awakening. Grand Archon, Telvos of the Galactic Council, had lived through 17 major civilizational collapses, 3 galactic realignments, and one particularly memorable quantum singularity crisis. None of them had given them the level of anxiety they felt while reading Senior Observer Krelax's report. They did what? Telvos's normally melodious voice cracked, causing several junior council members to flinch. The humans have not only detected our observation platforms, High Commander Zixtol repeated, their war crystals glowing with barely contained alarm. They've begun studying our cloaking technology through what they call reverse engineering. That's impossible. Council Elder Mirath interjected, their ancient form shimming with skepticism. Our stealth systems are based on principles they won't discover for at least. They didn't discover the principles, Zixtol interrupted. They simply noticed how birds occasionally flew into something invisible and decided to investigate. Their exact words were, "Hey, if birds are bouncing off nothing, there's probably something cool there." The council chamber erupted in confused murmurs. Telvos raised all 4 of their primary appendages for silence. How did they penetrate our defenses? Zixtol's war crystals flickered with embarrassment. They threw paint at the general area where birds were having accidents. Once they confirmed there was something there, they escalated to more sophisticated detection methods. Paint. Telvos said the word like it was a curse. They found us with paint. And enthusiasm, added Scientific Director Venra, who had just materialized in the chamber. Don't forget the enthusiasm. They're treating this like some sort of grand adventure. Look at this. A holographic projection appeared in the center of the chamber, showing a human research team celebrating around what appeared to be a partially visible section of an observation platform. Dr. Martinez, initial analysis of the alien cloaking device is complete, one human announced, reading from a primitive data tablet. And another human, presumably Dr. Martinez, leaned forward eagerly. It's way more advanced than anything we've got. We should probably study it carefully and hook it up to the quantum accelerator and see what happens. That could cause a catastrophic. Exactly. Think of how much we'll learn. The council watched in horror as the humans proceeded to connect their primitive quantum technology to the highly sophisticated cloaking device. The resulting explosion shook the research facility, but instead of retreating, the humans crowded closer, taking readings and shouting excitedly about breakthrough potential. They're insane, Elder Mirath whispered. Completely insane. No, Venra corrected. They're scientific crystals pulsing with reluctant admiration. They're innovative. Look at their data. That explosion taught them more about quantum field manipulation than 10 years of careful study would have. They're learning at an exponential rate because they're not afraid to fail spectacularly. And now they know we're here, Telvos added grimly. How long until they achieve direct communication capabilities? Before anyone could answer, the chamber's quantum communications array activated on its own. A human face appeared in the center of the room, grinning widely. Hey there, Dr. Sarah Chen, Earth Quantum Research Initiative. Sorry about hacking into your communication system. We kind of borrowed the principles from your cloaking device. Hope you don't mind. Anyone up for a chat about cultural exchange? We've got so many questions. The council chamber descended into chaos. Telvos noticed Venera actually sparking with excitement, a dangerous sign in a scientific director. This is unprecedented, Elder Mirath declared. No species has ever achieved first contact through unauthorized communication system hacking. There are protocols, procedures. Oh, those instruction manuals we found in your observation post. Dr. Chen's grin widened. Yeah, we used those as a starting point, but we figured out some pretty cool shortcuts. For instance, did you know that if you reverse the quantum polarity of your basic translator matrix and run it through what's essentially a modified coffee maker, you get universal translation in half the time? We call it the Babel Brew. Anyone want to see the specs? Telvos watched in a mixture of horror and fascination as several younger council members' crystals began pulsing with interest. The humans weren't just breaking into the galactic community, they were offering to teach others their chaotic methods. Director Venra, Telvos said carefully, what are the implications of humanity joining the galactic community centuries ahead of schedule? Venra's scientific crystals were now pulsing in patterns that hadn't been seen since the Great Innovation Age. Total transformation, Grand Archon. They're going to revolutionize everything, or destroy it trying. And honestly, I'm not sure which possibility is more exciting. We'd prefer revolution to destruction, Dr. Chen chimed in cheerfully. But hey, we're flexible. So about that cultural exchange, we're particularly interested in your faster-than-light technology. We've got some really interesting theories involving controlled quantum catastrophes that we'd love to test. Telvos felt their anxiety crystals begin to resonate. The galaxy had just become a much more dangerous and infinitely more interesting place. The age of careful, measured progress was over. The age of human chaos was about to begin. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, senior observer Krillax watched their warning become reality and wondered if the galaxy would survive humanity's enthusiastic embrace of failure as a path to success. The challenge. The trial of 7 impossibilities. Grand Archon, Telvos announced to the assembled human delegation. Complete these tasks, and the Galactic Council will consider Earth's petition for full membership. Dr. Sarah Chen, now Earth's unofficial ambassador thanks to what she called her creative approach to first contact, studied the holographic display with undisguised glee. Behind her, her team of scientists and engineers were already taking notes and whispering excitedly. Let me get this straight, she said, adjusting her glasses. You want us to stabilize a quantum singularity, achieve sustainable cold fusion, decode your species' ancient encryption protocols, create a viable artificial ecosystem, develop safe consciousness transfer technology, master temporal manipulation, and solve your galaxy's energy crisis. Precisely, Telvos confirmed, their crystals smugly resonating at frequencies that suggested confidence in humanity's imminent failure. These challenges have stumped our finest minds for millennia. We estimate it would take your species at least 5 centuries to... Cool, Sarah interrupted, tapping on her tablet. Hey Jenkins, remember that quantum singularity we accidentally created last month when the particle accelerator hiccuped? The one that almost ate the lab? Jenkins called back cheerfully. Already on it. Martinez is setting up the containment field now. We figured out how to stabilize it using modified microwave technology and duct tape. Telvos's smugness frequencies shifted abruptly to alarm. That's not possible. You can't stabilize a quantum singularity with kitchen appliances. Oh, you totally can. Sarah grinned. The trick is to not tell the laws of physics that what you're doing is impossible. Speaking of impossible, Dr. Patel, how's that cold fusion project coming along? A woman in the back of the human delegation looked up from what appeared to be a children's chemistry set. Just achieved sustainable reaction. Turns out the secret was introducing controlled chaos into the system. Who knew that deliberately destabilizing fusion containment could lead to better stability? We're calling it the task failed successfully principle. The council chamber erupted in confused murmurs as human scientists casually discussed solving problems that had baffled the galaxy's greatest minds for generations. Scientific Director Venra's crystals were now pulsing with such intense interest that younger council members had to shield their sensory arrays. This is unprecedented, Elder Mirath protested. These trials were designed to be impossible. Ah, see, that's where you made your mistake, Sarah explained, her eyes twinkling. You gave us a list of impossible things and basically dared us to do them. Humanity has a, let's say, complicated relationship with the word impossible. As if to punctuate her point, an excited shout came from the human research area that had been hastily set up in the corner of the council chamber. Hey, everyone. We just cracked the ancient encryption protocols. A young scientist waved a device that looked suspiciously like a modified game console. Turns out they're based on a mathematical sequence that shows up in Earth pizza delivery algorithms. Who wants to see? Several younger council members actually floated over to look, their curiosity overriding centuries of diplomatic protocol. Telvos watched in mounting horror as humans began explaining their methodology, a chaotic mixture of serious scientific principles and what they called crazy ideas that just might work. This isn't how advancement is supposed to happen, Mirath insisted. There should be careful study, precise calculations, rigorous testing. With all due respect, Sarah interrupted, that's exactly why these problems haven't been solved yet. Sometimes you need to look at things sideways, upside down, and occasionally through the lens of, what's the worst that could happen? Catastrophic destruction, Telvos suggested. Exactly. Sarah beamed. And then we learn from that destruction and try again, but differently. Speaking of which, Dr. Rodriguez, how's the artificial ecosystem coming along? We had 3 spectacular failures and 1 minor explosion, Rodriguez reported cheerfully. But the 4th attempt is stable and actually growing better than expected. Turns out introducing controlled chaos into the system makes it more resilient. Who knew? The humans knew, Venra murmured, their scientific crystals now pulsing in previously unrecorded patterns. They'd weaponized failure itself. Council members watched in a mixture of horror and fascination as humanity tackled each impossible challenge with what they termed educated recklessness. They didn't just solve problems. They broke them down, rebuilt them, and emerged with solutions that defied conventional wisdom. The consciousness transfer technology was cracked using principles derived from social media algorithms. The temporal manipulation challenge was solved through what the humans called aggressive application of caffeine and questionable decisions, and the galaxy's energy crisis. They solved it almost by accident while trying to build a more efficient coffee maker. I believe, Sarah announced less than a local week later. That's all 7 impossibilities checked off. Do we get membership cards, or is it more of a digital thing? Telvos crystals were vibrating at anxiety frequencies never before recorded. You can't have. This isn't impossible, Sarah suggested with a grin. Yeah, we get that a lot. So about that membership, we've got some ideas for improving your FTL technology. Have you ever considered what would happen if you introduced controlled quantum chaos into the drive systems? The sound Telvos made wasn't translatable into any known language, but it perfectly expressed the galaxy's reaction to humanity's approach to progress. Absolute terror mixed with reluctant admiration. The age of impossibility was over. The age of let's try it and see what happens had begun. And somehow, that was even more terrifying than any impossibility the Council had ever faced. The partnership. The Galactic Innovation Conference had never seen such chaos. Traditionally a dignified affair where species shared careful, methodically tested improvements, it had transformed into something entirely different since humanity's arrival. You want to do what to the quantum core? High Engineer Zixrel's crystalline form flickered with alarm as they stared at Dr. Martinez's presentation. Overloaded, just a little bit, Martinez explained, gesturing enthusiastically at his holographic diagrams. See, we noticed that quantum cores actually perform better after near-catastrophic failures. Something about the brush with destruction makes them more efficient. Across the vast conference hall, similar scenes played out. Humans paired with various alien species, introducing concepts that would have been considered heretical just months ago. The younger races, particularly the Novarians and Kelphids, had embraced humanity's methods with alarming enthusiasm. Results from the joint Human-Novarian Quantum Acceleration Project, a young Novarian scientist announced, their bioluminescent patterns glowing with excitement. By deliberately inducing controlled failures, we've achieved a 300% increase in efficiency. Scientific Director Venra, watching from their observation platform, noted with interest how the conference had divided. The older, established species huddled together, their various sensory organs registering horror at the procedural violations happening around them. The younger species, however, had fully embraced what humans called failing forward. It's spreading, Elder Mireth observed, their ancient form trembling slightly. This chaos methodology, it's infecting the entire scientific community. Not infecting, Venra corrected, their scientific crystals pulsing with fascination. Evolving. Look at the results. The results were, indeed, impossible to ignore. Species that had adopted human methods were advancing at unprecedented rates. The Kelphids, who had struggled with atmospheric purification for centuries, solved their pollution crisis in months by deliberately triggering controlled environmental collapses to study recovery patterns. The Novarians revolutionized their neural network technology by intentionally causing system failures and learning from the results. Even the notoriously cautious Zixthians were cautiously experimenting with what they termed calculated recklessness. Dr. Chen, a young Kelphid researcher, hurried across the conference hall, their tentacles writhing with excitement. We tried your task-failed successfully approach on our genetic engineering project. The results are, well, you should see for yourself. Sarah Chen, now sporting a badge that identified her as Chief of Creative Catastrophes, a title she had made up and no one had dared to question, followed eagerly. The results, displayed on a quantum hologram, showed breakthrough achievements in genetic stability that should have taken decades to achieve. You see, she explained to the gathered crowd of young scientists from various species, the key is to not just accept failure, but to actively court it. Every failure is a data point. Every catastrophe is a lesson. And if you're not occasionally creating small explosions, are you even really sciencing? That's not even a word, Elder Mireth muttered. It is now. Sarah called back cheerfully. We're revolutionizing language too. Speaking of which, who wants to help us test our new quantum linguistics theory? Fair warning, it might temporarily break causality. To the Council's horror, dozens of young scientists from various species immediately volunteered. In a quiet corner of the conference, High Commander Zixtal conferred with other military leaders. The humans aren't just changing our scientific methods, they reported grimly. Their influence is affecting military doctrine, economic theory, even social structures. The younger generations are embracing chaos as a path to progress. Not chaos, corrected a Novarian admiral who had been working closely with human military advisors. Controlled chaos. There's a difference. The humans don't just rush blindly into failure. They study it, learn from it, weaponize it. And the results? The results were displayed all around them. Hybrid technologies that shouldn't have worked but did. Theoretical breakthroughs achieved through what humans called educated guessing and reckless optimism. Solutions that emerged from the wreckage of spectacular failures. We're losing control, Elder Mirith observed. We never had control, Venra replied, their crystals now pulsing with patterns that suggested both excitement and concern. We just had the illusion of it. The humans haven't introduced chaos into a perfectly ordered galaxy. They've simply shown us that progress has always been chaotic. They've just taught us to stop fighting it. Across the conference hall, Sarah Chen was now leading a mixed species team in what she called a controlled quantum accident. The air crackled with energy as traditional safety protocols were carefully but deliberately pushed to their limits. Remember, she advised her eager students, the goal isn't to avoid failure. It's to fail in interesting and informative ways. Now, who wants to help me break the laws of physics? Every hand, tentacle, and sensory appendage in the vicinity went up. The galaxy wasn't just changing. It was embracing change itself, guided by humanity's unique approach to progress. The age of careful, methodical advancement was giving way to something new. An era where failure was not just accepted, but celebrated as a path to success. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, senior observer Krillax updated their report to the Council with a simple addendum. The humans haven't just joined galactic civilization. They've revolutionized our understanding of progress itself. The only question now is, what impossible thing will they achieve next? The answer, as always with humans, was probably going to involve explosions. And somehow, that was becoming less terrifying and more exciting with each passing day. The revolution. One standard galactic year after humanity's introduction to the interstellar community, Grand Archon, Telvo stood before the assembled council to deliver what many considered the most important speech in galactic history. We stand at a crossroads, they began, their crystalline form resonating with complex harmonics that conveyed both apprehension and hope. The galaxy as we knew it no longer exists. The question before us is not whether to accept change, but how to embrace it. The council chamber, once a model of order and tradition, reflected the transformation Telvos spoke of. Younger council members wore modified environmental suits that incorporated what humans called experimental improvements. Several elder members had actually begun displaying emotion crystals, a practice previously considered too chaotic for formal settings. And there, in the center of it all, stood Dr. Sarah Chen, now officially titled Galactic Minister of Innovation. After 3 explosions, 2 quantum accidents, and one particularly memorable incident involving a malfunctioning coffee maker that accidentally solved 3 unsolvable equations. The humans, Telvos continued, have shown us that our fear of failure was itself our greatest failure. We sought perfection through caution, progress through control. But the universe, it seems, favors those who dare to fail spectacularly. As if to emphasize this point, a minor explosion echoed from the adjacent laboratory complex, followed by excited cheering in multiple species languages. Sorry. Dr. Martinez's voice carried through the quantum comm. Good news, though. We just accidentally invented a new form of matter. Anyone want to help us figure out why it's humming? Telvos noted with resigned amusement how several elder members' crystals pulsed with interest despite their attempts to maintain dignified indifference. In the past year, they continued, we have seen more technological advancement than in the previous millennium. The human approach, as it's now called, has spread beyond science into art, culture, and philosophy. Species that once feared change now embrace it. Civilizations that stood apart for eons now collaborate in what humans call shared learning experiences, though we note these experiences often involve containment breaches. Sarah stepped forward, her eyes sparkling with their characteristic mix of intelligence and barely contained excitement. What my esteemed colleague is trying to say is, We've taught the galaxy how to play with fire without being afraid of getting burned. Well, maybe a little burned, but that's how you learn. The chamber's quantum displays activated, showing achievements from across the galaxy. The Novarians had revolutionized space travel by intentionally creating controlled wormhole collapses. The Kelphids had transformed their entire society after embracing what they called structured randomness. Even the ancient Zixthians had begun experimenting with controlled chaos in their architectural designs. But perhaps most importantly, Telvos observed, we have learned that progress isn't a straight line. It's not even a curve. It's more like a drunk quantum physicist trying to dance, Sarah supplied helpfully. You never know exactly where you'll end up, but the journey's always interesting. The chamber filled with laughter. Another change brought by human influence. Once considered a sign of undignified emotional display, laughter had become increasingly common in council proceedings, especially after spectacular experimental failures. We therefore propose, Telvos announced, their crystals now resonating with decisive frequencies, a complete restructuring of the Galactic Council. No longer will we be mere guardians of knowledge. We will be pioneers of discovery. We will embrace failure as a teacher, chaos as a tool, and uncertainty as an opportunity. The voting was unanimous, even among the elder members. The galaxy had changed too much to go back. The age of careful progress was over, replaced by what humans called enthusiastic exploration of failure states. As the council chamber erupted in celebration, Sarah turned to Telvos with a grin. So, about that weird quantum fluctuation we detected in the galactic core, the one our models suggest could destroy half the galaxy if mishandled. Telvos's crystals pulsed with what was now recognizable as excitement. Exactly. We have some ideas involving modified toasters and questionable physics, want to help us potentially break reality. Telvos found their crystals resonating with anticipation rather than fear. You know, a year ago that question would have horrified me. Now I find myself asking, what's the worst that could happen? That's the spirit. Sarah beamed. Though fair warning, last time someone asked that, we accidentally created a temporary pocket universe, still trying to figure out where we put it. As the newly reformed council dispersed to their various projects, many of which violated multiple laws of physics, Telvos reflected on how far they had come. The galaxy had not just survived humanity's chaos, it had been reborn through it. The silence between stars was gone, replaced by the sound of countless species learning, failing, and achieving together. It was messier, louder, and infinitely more dangerous than before. It was also, undeniably, more alive. And somewhere in that vast, chaotic expanse of space, senior observer Krillax, now leading an interspecies team of professional accident investigators, filed their final report on humanity's influence. Conclusion: the galaxy's greatest mistake was fearing mistakes. Humanity's gift was teaching us to embrace them. The future is uncertain, frequently explosive, and absolutely wonderful. P.S. Currently investigating why our quantum coffee maker is producing antimatter. Results promising, though slightly concerning. We'll update if we survive the next test. The age of chaos had begun, and the galaxy, at long last, was ready to dance with it.